right, we're going to Second Chronicles 22 this morning. Second Chronicles 22 in your Bible, if you would. Second Chronicles 22. We are continuing our study of the Kings, and we are to this passage of Scripture now, which is a very instructive Scripture. And to be honest with you, we are going to park right here in chapter 22 until Mother's Day, which is 2 weeks away. So you'll hear it today, and we'll be speaking on it the next couple of weeks. Second Chronicles 22, I think something very important for us to learn. All right, I need an older couple here this morning to come forward and be Ahab and Jezebel. Who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Bill and Sandy, y'all coming on up here? All right. Y'all come right over here and stand, if you would. Face the congregation. Hold your sign up. There you go. All right. All right, so we have Ahab and Jezebel here. All right? I need an older man, just an older man, to come forward and be this. All right, Mike, come on up here. How old are you, Mike? You don't have to tell us. I'm just kidding. Yes, that's right. Feels like 18 anyhow. All right, hold that up. This is Jehoshaphat, all right? Jehoshaphat. So we have Ahab and Jezebel over here, and we have Jehoshaphat over here. I want you to kind of get the background of this story, all right? This is the northern kingdom. This is after, Solomon's died, and the kingdom is divided. Rehoboam takes the south, Jeroboam takes the north, and now we're way down in line here. So we have the northern kingdom. Ahab is the king. Jezebel's the queen. We have the southern kingdom. At this time, Jehoshaphat, or we're going to show you Jehoshaphat was the king. All right. I need a 30-something-year-old lady. 30-something-year-old lady, all right? Julie, come on. You come over here and stand by your parents, all right? This is your parents. You are Athaliah, all right? All right, Ahab, Jezebel, Athaliah. This is their daughter, Athaliah, all right? Then I need a 30-something-year-old man. 30-something-year-old man. Yeah, I see a bunch of people moving this way, all right? I'll take 40. Okay, Joe, come on. In his 30s, all right? All right, you're going to be Jehoram. Okay? You're going to be Jehoram on the other side of Jehoshaphat, if you would. There you go. All right, this is Jehoshaphat's son, Jehoram. Okay? Y'all got that? Okay. All right, so we have Ahab and Jezebel and Athaliah, all right? Father, mother, daughter. We have Jehoshaphat, a good king. His son, Jehoram, who's a bad king. But he takes over from him. Now, what happens here is, in this story of the kings, we've studied, you've read it a little bit, Ahab and Jehoshaphat get together. Y'all come here and shake hands right here in the middle, if you would. Just shake hands. All right, then you can go back to your places. All right, thank you. And what they have agreed upon here is that this young lady and this man are going to get married. So, Athaliah, you come over here and stand by Jehoram, if you would, all right? You stand by Jehoram, all right? Now, Jehoshaphat, you can have a seat on the front for right now, okay? Just on the front, if you would, Jehoshaphat. Yes, that's right. You're Jehoshaphat. Okay. So Ahab and Jezebel have given up their daughter, Athaliah, to Jehoram. Now, I need somebody about 20-something years old. It's not exactly what fits the Bible story, but just to kind of give you the idea of it, all right? I need a man. I'm sorry. Sorry, Brittany. I need a man. I need a brain. Okay, I'll take Quinn. You want to come do it? Come on, Quinn. You don't want to do it? All right. Okay, Quinn wants to come do it. Okay. All right, I'll let Quinn do it. Okay. This is Ahaziah. Okay, Ahaziah. Quinn, you hold that up there. All right, Ahaziah is their son. Okay. All right. Jehoram and Athaliah had a son, and his name is Ahaziah. All right, so you get the idea here. All right, so we had Ahab and Jezebel. Athaliah, come back over here real quick. Athaliah, Jehoshaphat, go back in place. We're going to, Jehoshaphat, Mike. We're going to review this, okay? That's right. That's right. All right, y'all, I'm just going to review one more time here real quickly. All right, we had Ahab and Jezebel. They had a daughter named Athaliah. Jehoshaphat had a son named Jehoram. We don't know Miss Jehoshaphat's name. You know, she's not involved. All right, Ahab and Jehoshaphat, y'all shake hands one more time here, if you would. Okay? Yes. All right, then Jehoshaphat, you have a seat. Ahab and Jezebel, y'all have a seat right here on the front. Athaliah, you come over here by Jehoram, in between Jehoram and Ahaziah. And then Jehoram and Athaliah have a son, and his name is Ahaziah. All right, we got that? Y'all got that in your mind, okay? So we got that picture. Okay, let's give all these folks a big hand here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, y'all can have a seat back where you were. Okay. All right, now we're going to read 2 Chronicles chapter 22, beginning in verse number 1. I'm going to share a verse with you today that's going to blow your mind. Absolutely blow your mind. 2 Chronicles 22, verse 1, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah. All right, remember Quinn was Ahaziah over here. Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his stead. All right, and that would be the king of Jehoram, all right, in Jehoram's stead. For the band of men that came with the Arabians to the camp had slain all the elders. So Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, reigned. 42 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign. He reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. Boy, he reigned a long time, didn't he? His mother's name also was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri, granddaughter of Omri, daughter of Ahab. And if you need me to explain it to you later, I can. Verse 3. He also walked in the ways of the house of Ahab. We're talking about Ahaziah. Walked in the ways of the house of Ahab. Was that righteous or wicked? That was wicked. And notice the next phrase. For his mother. His mother was his counselor to do wickedly. Now, what are mothers supposed to do? They're supposed to be counselors for righteousness. But this man, Ahaziah, had a mother named Athaliah, and she was his counselor to do wickedly. In other words, he was like a puppet almost, and she was pulling the strings, and she was telling him all these wicked things to do, and we can't even imagine some of the things that they did. Very wicked in their worship, in their lifestyles, and listen, they knew what God said. They knew what the Bible even said. They knew what the prophets even said. And you know what they said to the prophets and to God? We're not going to do it your way. We're going to do it our way. And so they followed the ways of Satan. They did wickedly. I believe, and it's sad to say, that here in America, we have a lot of wickedness. We have a lot of wicked children. And many times we have wicked children because we have wicked parents. And we have parents who have led them down the wrong roads. We have parents, we have problem children today, and many times we have problem children. Now, not every time, and this is not I'm not throwing the blanket over this, but many times we have problem children because we have problem parents. Because parents are not doing what they need to do. Parents are not doing right in their life. And so it weighs, and it goes right down to the children. And here we have this story. It says his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. This mother who brought him into the world. And again, I mentioned this in Sunday school, that I thank God for my godly mother. And if you had a godly mother, I know that you're thankful for her today. And you rejoice in the fact that you had a godly mother. And if your mother's still alive today, you ought to tell her. You ought to tell her today. Don't wait till Mother's Day. Tell her today that you thank God she's a godly mother. And I thank God that I have a godly mother, and my mother prayed for me. She dragged me to church. You know, people talk about this drug problem they have. Yeah, I had a drug problem. I got drugged to church every time the doors were open. Get dragged to church. My mother made sure I was in Sunday school, made sure I was in church, made sure I was there on Sunday nights and Wednesday nights, and my mother set a godly example before me. She was my counselor to do righteously. Sad to say, we've got too many counselors leading our kids astray. Just a few thoughts on parents here today and why parents don't always do what they need to do. Number one reason is because sometimes parents have been wounded. You'll see that up on the board, and you can write this down. They've been wounded. Sometimes parents have been wounded. The Bible tells us that Adam brought forth a son. Of course, he had Cain and Abel, but then Cain killed Abel, and then God kicked Cain down the road, basically. And they had another son. His name was Seth. And when Adam and Eve brought Seth into this world, Adam had already been wounded by sin. He had lost his innocence. He had fallen and possessed a sinful nature, which he passed on to Seth. Now, I'm going to tell you, we live in a world today that's very sad in many ways, because there are people who are parents today who have been wounded by their parents. And wounded in this way, how sad it is to hear this, but you hear stories sometimes that parents just desert their kids. Just desert them. You hear stories that the father just ups and leaves and leaves his family, and maybe there's another woman involved, and maybe there's not another woman involved, and just leaves his family, and there's the mother having to deal with all of those situations. Many parents have been wounded by desertion. Many people have been deserted by mom, dad, or even both when they were young. And many times those kind of, when they become parents one day, they say, well, I don't really want to discipline my children too strong because I don't want them to get the wrong idea and this and that and the other. And then they become problem parents. Now just hang on. And still, you can be deserted and still be the greatest parent in the world, though. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. Sometimes parents who have been wounded by their parents become overly bitter and angry toward their own children. Sometimes parents have been wounded by defilement. Sad to say, we live in an age where many children grow up being abused by their parents. And how sad that is. And I'm talking about child abuse, but I'm also talking about physical and sexual abuse. And how sad that is. Go to that, the Sunday school hour, I had a obituary. Can you go to that obituary for me and put that up on the screen? In the Sunday school hour, I had an obituary. This is an actual obituary that was in the Reno, Nevada newspaper back last year, 1st of September or so. Mary Ann Teresa Johnson Reddick, born January 4th, 1935, and died alone on August 30th, 2013. She is survived by 6 of her 8 children, whom she spent her lifetime torturing in every way possible. While she neglected and abused her small children, she refused to allow anyone else to care or show compassion towards them. When they became adults, she stalked and tortured anyone they dared to love. Everyone she met, adult or child, was tortured by her cruelty and exposure to violence, criminal activity, vulgarity, and hatred of the gentle or kind human spirit. On behalf of her children, whom she so abrasively exposed to her evil and violent life, we celebrate her passing from this earth and hope she lives in the afterlife, reliving each gesture of violence, cruelty, and shame that she delivered on her children. Her surviving children will now live the rest of their lives with a peace of knowing their nightmare finally has some form of closure. Most of us have found peace in helping those who have been exposed to child abuse, and hope this message of her final passing can revive our message that abusing children is unforgivable, shameless, and should not be tolerated in a humane society. Our greatest wish now is to stimulate a national movement that mandates a purposeful and dedicated war against child abuse in the United States of America. How would you like that to be written about you? Sometimes parents have been wounded by divorce, and I'm talking about parents. You can go there. You go. Thank you. We talk about parents who grow up and then become parents, and there's been divorce, and it's hurt them and in their life. But you know what? People say, well, they've had a tough life. Let me tell you something. You may have had a tough life, but you can still be a godly person. You can still do right. You say, well, my mom and dad wasn't much of a mom and dad. But you know what you say? I'm going to be a great mom and dad. I'm going to be a great parent to my children. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to break the cycle. Some of you may have heard a singer by the name of Mark Schultz. If you have not heard Mark Schultz, you ought to hear of him. I found out about him, and matter of fact, he was in Columbia, South Carolina a few weeks ago, and we drove up there to see him be in the concert that he was in. And got to meet him and talk to him for just a second. But his testimony is like this. When he was 2 weeks old, his mom and daddy his mama gave him up. Gave him up for adoption. To this day, he's like 45 years old. To this day, he has never met his birth mother. He would like to meet his birth mother, but he has never met his birth mother. He, however, grew up in a good, godly home, and now sings for the Lord and lives for the Lord. And now he has a child of his own, a youngster, a toddler. And his testimony is he wants to be the best parent that he can be to his child. If he's again, a lot of songs you can YouTube it and Google it and look up Mark Schultz. But a great testimony. We had a lady in our church a few Sunday nights ago by the name of Kathy Hansard. Her and her husband James are missionaries. They work with Macedonia World Baptist Missions. And they were in our Sunday night service a few weeks ago. And we went out to eat with them afterwards and started fellowshipping a little bit. And she told us an unbelievable story. The reason they actually came to Savannah was because she's 58 years old. And on Monday, this was a Sunday night, they visited us. On Monday afternoon, she was visiting her birth mother for the very first time. Lives next door to y'all. Lives right next door to you, I believe. The lady that lives right next door to you is this lady's birth mother. She was 58 years old, and you could tell she was nervous and all of that, and she'd never met her birth mother. Now her birth mother had given her up, and she had done that. But see, Kathy grew up, and you know what? She made up her mind that she was going to serve God with her life, and she was going to be godly, even though her birth mother may not have been a godly person at the time. Let me tell you something. She made up her mind she was going to be godly. Secondly, sometimes parents are weak. Sometimes parents are weak. Some of you have heard the story of Samuel in the Bible. You know, Samuel was born. His mother, Hannah, didn't have any babies, and she prayed for a baby, you remember? And God gave her a baby. You remember she said, God, if you'll give me a baby, you'll give me a son, I'll give him back to you. And remember when she had him and had weaned him, she took him to the temple or to the tabernacle, and she met with Eli, the high priest, and said, he's yours. And there's a lot of stories with all that, but Eli was a man who was the high priest at the time, but he had two sons who were very vile and very wicked. You can read the story, 1 Samuel. They were very vile and very wicked, two sons. And you know what the Bible says about old Eli? Eli, in many ways, Eli was a great man. But it said this of Eli, his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. His sons were out there doing wicked things. Wicked things. And Eli stood back and said nothing. You know what God ended up doing to those two boys? God ended up striking them down dead. Because of a weak father who would not stand up to his sons when they were doing wrong. And when they become adults, I mean, you can't really do anything about it. I understand that. But I can tell you one thing, I'm going to scream and scream and scream and scream and scream and say, you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong. God's not going to bless it, God's not going to bless it, God's not going to bless it. But a lot of times parents just say, well, whatever you want to do. Whatever. That's being weak. We need some parents that are strong. We need some godly fathers and godly mothers who are strong and will stand up when wickedness abounds. Sometimes parents are weak. You know, sometimes parents are, it is work to train kids. Do you know that? It's not playtime. How many of you ladies ever had a child? Let me see your hand. You had a child. How many of you looked like this one time? Okay? Some of you look like this more than once. My mother looked like, well, she didn't really look that big because she's little anyhow, but you know, she did like this 5 different times. Anyhow, that 9 months of being pregnant and going through all that, and many of you went through it right in the middle of the summertime, all that kind of stuff. Let me tell you something. That's nothing compared to the 18 years that it takes to bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Let me tell you something. Some parents think that it's playtime. Let me tell you something. Parenting and doing it right is work. Is work. And too many parents are too weak in that. They're too lazy. Their child misbehaves, and they're sitting on the couch, you know, just relaxing, and they wait till the child, and they say something. Okay, you better behave. And the child does it again. All right, you better behave. Child does it again. You better behave. I'm coming in there. Until finally, you better behave. You should have taken care of it the first time, but you're too lazy to get up and do it. Too many parents are lazy and weak in checking up on their children and controlling their children and correcting their children and chastising their children. Let me tell you something. Be careful about empty threats. Well, you're not going to get any Christmas presents if you don't behave. You know very well they're going to get Christmas presents. Now, maybe you're one that's not going to give it to them, okay? And you can tell me that afterwards. But I imagine 99.9% of the people are going to give them Christmas presents anyhow. Hey, you know what I tell you to tell them? Tell them something you will do to them. Tell them, I'm going to give you an attitude adjustment right here in just a moment. Is what I'm going to give you. And then we talk about the negative, but you know what? Too many parents are too weak in counseling and coaching their children in the right ways. You know, we always want to talk about discipline and making, you know, finding out when they do wrong and correcting them and all that kind of stuff. Well, how about this? How about too many parents are too weak in coaching their children to do right to start with? Let's just coach them and counsel them to do right to start with. Provide instruction. Encourage them. You know, too many kids have the mentality that my parents only look at me when I do wrong instead of looking at me when I do right. Find out something they've done right and brag on them. You'd be amazed at what it'll do for them. Thirdly, sometimes parents are wrong. Hey, we have this woman here in 2 Chronicles 22:3. It says his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. She taught him and showed him how to do wicked things and led him in a wicked way. God help us. I am so glad that's not my mother. I look at so many mothers today and in our world, and I talked about this in Sunday school, and I said, oh, Lord, thank you that's not my mother. Thank you for the mother that I had. Thirdly, sometimes parents are wrong. The Bible says there's a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. They're wrong about priorities. You know, too many parents have the idea that it's more important to provide clothes for my kids than to provide character. Too many parents think it's more important for their child to make money than it is to serve God. Their priorities are all out of whack. Their priorities are all wrong. Sometimes they're wrong about punishment. I talked about that a moment ago, but why is it that we think that our kids cannot get by in life without having some kind of discipline in their life? The Bible says, he that spareth his rod hateth his son. But he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes. Betimes means over and over and over, as much as he needs. You know what else the Bible says? The rod and reproof give wisdom. But a child left to himself bringeth his mother to shame. And sometimes parents are wrong about principles. They have forgot to put God first in their life or have not put God first in their life, and so their child does not put God first in their life. And then fourthly, sometimes parents are just plain wicked. They're just wicked. I'm going to tell you, you're reading along in the Scripture. I mean, I love John 3:16, for God so loved the world. When I'm reading through that and get to that verse, I just stop a moment and pause a little bit. When I'm reading some other verses, I'm just kind of reading through and reading things. In this king story, there's some things I read through and just kind of read through the story. But I'm going to tell you, when I get to 2 Chronicles 20:22 and I get to verse 3 and I read that last part of that verse, I have to just stop. Because I'm jolted. I'm jolted. Where it says his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. Now, not only mothers, but fathers. Hey, there's plenty of instances in the Bible where fathers led their kids astray too. Don't get me wrong. Jeroboam, they still talk about the sins of Jeroboam upon king after king after king after king after king in the northern kingdom. Sometimes parents, distracted by the world, the flesh, and the devil, we have forgot the principles of God's Word, and we've bit into what the world has to say today. And so we bite into that, and we don't stand up, and we just go along with the wickedness in our world today. Listen, sometimes parents are disloyal to each other. The horror to me of a woman committing adultery in a marriage relationship, or a man committing adultery in a marriage relationship, and what that does to the family. What that does to the family. I've seen a lot of broken homes because of adultery, because wickedness. Wickedness. It's what the Bible calls it, sin. Fighting in the home. Being disobedient to God. The Bible talks about, go over to Mark chapter 9. Go over to Mark chapter 9. Let me show you something Jesus said over here. Verse 42. Jesus speaking, he said, whosoever shall offend one of these little ones that believe in me, it is better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, he were cast into the sea. Where you see these four things up here, these parents who are wounded, weak, wrong, and wicked, and then they lead their children down the wrong road. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what Jesus is talking about, offending one of these little ones. He said, it's just better that we just drown you out there in the middle of the sea. We need a revival of parents. If we want our children to turn out right, we need a revival of parents. We need parents to stand up and take a stand for God and take a stand for righteousness and not for evil, not for wickedness. The Bible says that his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. It's not just the mothers, it's the fathers. We need parents not only to tell our kids how to live, but to show them how to live. 33 years ago, a little girl was born into our home. 31 years ago, a little girl was born into our home. God gave me and Dana the greatest opportunity in the world to bring up children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. 15 years ago, we had a little boy. We were just about to empty nest. And we started over. Loved every minute of it. Thank God for every minute of it. I got somebody to help me do yard work. I didn't have to cut the grass yesterday. we took our responsibility serious. And I'm not bragging on myself. I'm bragging on God today. I'm thanking God that my children grown up to know Him, to love Him, to serve Him. And I'm bragging on God today. Take it seriously. It's very serious. I may never be as clever as my neighbor down the street, someone wrote. I may never be as wealthy as some other men I meet. I may never have the glory that some other men have had, but I've just got to be successful as that little fellow's dad. There are certain dreams I cherish that I'd like to see come true. There are things that I'd accomplish before my working time is through. But the task my heart is set on is to guide a little lad and to make myself successful as that little fellow's dad. Oh, I may never come to glory, and I may never gather gold, and men may count me as a failure when my business life is told. But if he who follows after shall be godly, then I'll be glad, because I'll know I've been successful as that little fellow's dad. It's the one job that I dream of. It's the task I think of most, for if I fail that little fellow, I have nothing else to boast. For the wealth and fame I'd gather, all my fortune would be sad if I fail to be successful as that little fellow's dad. That's what I want to be. I hope that you want to be that as a dad and that as a mother, that godly influence in their life. Now, in closing this morning, we have Athaliah, a wicked counselor. But there's another kind of counselor in the Bible that's described a little different. Starts with a W. There's another kind of counselor in the Bible, and it's over there in the book of Isaiah. And you know what it's called? He's a wonderful counselor. A wonderful counselor. Now, I want you to get the difference between Athaliah and her being a wicked counselor and the Lord Jesus Christ being that wonderful counselor. That wonderful counselor. You see, Jesus is that wonderful counselor. We talk about parents being wounded. Well, let me tell you something. The Lord Jesus Christ was wounded for our transgressions. The Almighty. He's not weak either. He's the Almighty, but yet He became weak. He became poor for my sake. And then this wonderful counselor, He's not wrong. He's never wrong. He is truth, but He took my wrongs on Him. And He's not wicked. He's pure through and through. But He took my wickedness upon Him. On one hand, we have a wicked counselor, Athaliah. Then on this hand, we have our wonderful counselor, the Lord Jesus Christ. He's the one that can save you and can change your life. He can change your home. Are you ready for Him today? If you don't know Him, would you come to Him today? Heads are bowed and eyes are closed. Heads are bowed and eyes are closed. If you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ today, you can be saved today. Just a moment, we'll have an invitation. You just need to step out.